What's up, guys? Today I want to talk to you about fishing a hair jig. Alright guys, as you know, we're talking about hair jigs today. And a hair jig is something typically fished from mid-summer to late, more in the late summer. But for me, as soon as those bass get off those beds and move out, I'm gonna have this on the deck of my boat. The reason is because I don't feel like a lot of anglers utilize a hair jig. Utilize. They just don't use it. It just provides a great reaction, just like a crankbait, because it's gonna shoot off the bottom. And so I'm gonna show you a couple different retrieves. Cell phone. No. Quit texting me. Different couple retrieves you can use. Come on now. I'm going to show you a couple different retrieves and presentations. And I'm going to show you a couple pro presentations, how they fish it compared to how I fish it. And you can kind of see the differences and what maybe works for you, and just some things to try in your own lake. So right now I'm going to show you some presentations, some retrieves. I'm going to show you some spots, some topo maps, some graph shots, different sizes of preacher jigs, hair jigs you can use, my setup I use, and again, setup's not really that important to me. You use whatever you're comfortable with. This is pretty much you're just casting it out and winding for the most part, but I'm going to show you, we're going to get to that. But as always, I don't know what I said, as always, it's hair jig time. Dumb. Just next. Alright, so we're on an offshore point out here. I'm casting, just so you guys can see, I'm casting up here on the point. Point sticks out, and it's about 18 foot on top of that point. I'm out here, and I'm a little too far out right now. I need to back up, but I'm in about 30, sitting in 30, 35 foot right now. I'll sink to the bottom, and then I'm going to reel pretty fast, and I'm going to watch my line drop. When I feel it go slack, hit the bottom, I'm going to wind it up again. Let my line drop, slack, reel it up again. When you leave your rod tip high like this, you can feel it a little bit better. You can feel the bite and it hit the bottom. Well, I'd say the bottom you can feel about the same, but the bite you can detect a little easier when your rod tip's up. And also the other thing, in my opinion, with this, when your rod tip's up, you're going to shoot that bait higher off the bottom. So depending on where those fish are, you're going to want it where you're going to keep the pitch of your rod. Well, I like to do a lot of times is keep my rod actually pointed down and wind it and let it drop. And I just kind of feel like it's not shooting off the bottom as much. It's kind of shooting just a little bit. So if those fish are lower, closer to the bottom, or just barely off the bottom, I feel like that's more in the zone of them. But you just want to play with, you want to look on where the fish are in the water column and then play with the tip up or down. Both KVD and Jacob Wheeler, they are more of a, their rod tip's more up. They reel it, the retrieve's about the same, but their rod tip's up a little bit more, like kind of like this. So like I said, they wind it just about as fast, sometimes fast. KVD winds it pretty fast. He's about like that, and then he lets it drop. And I can't tell, it could be the depth that they're fishing in, I'm not sure. But I don't know if they're letting it go all the way to the bottom or if they're letting it drop and then picking it back up, because they're in between retrieves sometimes is pretty quick. Another guy fishes the FLW, Buddy Gross, and he fishes it, let me cast out again and I'll show you. He fishes a little bit different. He actually keeps his rod down, like I was showing you a lot of what I typically do, keep my rod down, but the speed of his retrieve is a lot slower. He may wind it like that about 5 or 6 times and then let it drop, and then wind it 5 or 6 times. Just a lot slower, more methodical, I guess. But there's just some options you can try on your lake to see what you think works well. But again, this is just a great reaction bait to me, and just a bait that not a lot of people fish, and I just feel like it pays off. on probably about, I'm sitting in 30 foot of water, caught him in 15, he's probably sitting in 15 or so. There's this kind of a flat point. I'm on kind of out on a ledge. There's a point that comes way out and touches the channel. And on the top, it's pretty flat and not much up there. And then as it, on the drop, just not very much, but there's some rock. And, but yeah, I mean, summer's the time. Right now I'm out here on this lake and everybody's around me that I've seen is beating the bank. And it's kind of my own deal out here. So as you can see, the big bass are out here. And if you can find spots and build confidence, and you can catch big ones. You just have to be patient with it and trust your instincts. Obviously look at the spot, and if you're seeing bait or just good stuff on top, just even if you're not marking fish, stop and throw on it for a while. You never know. I hadn't caught this, my first bite of the day. I've been out here for probably 2 hours. First bite of the day, and it was a 6-pounder. A lot of times my bites, for whatever reason, come in about the middle part of the day. I don't know if they go back in the, or up shallower in the creeks and feed early in the morning and they slide out, and eventually lunchtime's about their time to eat. I don't really know, but this is one thing. Right now that this water temp's 85, so don't let that discourage you. But right now I'm fishing this spot, this point. I'm out deep. And that's all I'm looking for, is these deep points that drop off into the main channel. And this one here there's kind of a creek on one side and a little creek on the side I'm on, and it's the point that forms out, and it's got the channel swings right against it. So you got a lot of good current coming over the top. And behind me you got some docks that if they get hot, they go under the docks. And also on this spot, I'm a little deep right now, but I'm typically sitting in about 35 foot. It's about 16 to 18 up on top. Depending on where you throw, it gets a little deeper, closer to the channel, obviously. But with offshore fishing, you want to run a lot of spots. That's typically, as you've probably heard, you need to jump a lot of spots, because it's all a timing deal. Like I just said, the middle of the day has been successful for me for whatever reason. But sometimes it hasn't. Sometimes I've fished a spot that I've caught them on that time of day, and they haven't been there. I've moved and caught them on a different spot. You just never know. That's why you got to jump. And you don't want to spend a lot of time on one spot and waste that day. You want to make that 10 or 15 cast, good cast, on the spot cast, and if you don't get anything, move on and come back. Don't just leave it. Don't mark it off for the day. Just come back to it. And you want to get a few good spots on that lake before you go, planned out, marked, and where you can just kind of jump. And eventually, either on that lake you're fishing, you're going to get some spots where you're going to catch them, and you're going to know the next time, well, kind of narrow down all those spots you marked, narrow it down just a few and run those. We're going to give it a few casts on this spot and see if we can make something happen. this spot, we're going to drive off this point. On the top is about 18 foot, and at the deepest spot, we're in 10 right now. We're going to drive off and see if we see anything on the drop. So on this spot, it's just a point that comes way out, and what I'm looking for is the points or ledges that are coming way out and touching the channel. I'm mid-lake here, middle of the lake. So this point, see this creek comes out, and on the edge of that creek, it forms a point coming out right to us. And I'm sitting in 40 foot of water right now. That up on top is 18 foot. And that point tucks back in and kind of falls along the bank. But right out behind us is where it drops down. I mean, 40 foot now, it's dropping down to about 60 into the creek channel right out there. And that's what you want to look for. Those points that are flat up on top, a little bit of rock, but mostly flat, that reach out and touch that channel right before it drops down in the river channel. So that's the kind of spot I'm fishing right here. I'm just casting up on top, and I'm shooting it off that edge, and they're sitting down there on that drop. So the last piece of this is the gear I'm using and the sizes of hair jigs that I typically go with. Right here, this hair jig, I got another one here, is a 3/4 ounce, and you can find this one, focus there. This one is actually in the kind of the striper section, saltwater section. It's 3/4 ounce. They have it all the way up to 2 ounce because they do, fish. Mainly, a lot of these are fish for striper, so they got a lot heavier weights. They all have good stout hooks on them. There's not really any hair jigs that I've found that don't have good hooks on them. They're supposed to be pretty heavy wire because they do catch striper. A couple other options are I have a 1/2 ounce and this one here. This is just a smaller hair jig. This one has more of a feather and more color in it. They do sell chartreuse hair jigs, but I think that's more for the striper. I'm pretty much strictly just white. This one has a little bit of black in it to look more like a gizzard shad, but it's got a gray head. I haven't used this one much. I kind of just got this one, but it's got a little bit smaller hook on it compared to the 3/4 ounce here. And then there's also this one, which has pretty long hair. It gets pretty nasty. You got to get it wet down and kind of comb it out actually to straighten it out. It gets dries and kind of bends up like that. But it's just if you're really wanting to make sure you get a big bite, you can go with this one, the hair jigs with the longer bucktail on it. For the most part on the hair jigs, I keep it pretty simple. I pretty much use standard white, and this is probably my go-to here. Just a shorter tail. It's 3/4 ounce. I just feel like I can feel the bottom better with that. But for that 15 to 25-ish foot, it's pretty good. And once you get over 25, once I start getting closer to the boat on 25 foot, it's a little bit harder to detect, but for the most part, 3/4 ounces is what I use. As for the gear, I use a Lew's Custom SLP. It's a good reel. It's a aluminum frame reel. It's one-piece aluminum frame, so it's solid, strong reel. It's got the wind knob handles on it, which helps grab on and they're wet or dry. It's just a really good reel for the price, especially. I mean, it's fairly inexpensive reel for what you get. And the rod I'm using is the Lew's Custom Pro Ledge Series rod, which the Custom Pro. So the difference between the Custom Pro and the Custom Ledge series, the Custom Ledge or Custom Pros have a split grip, and the Custom Ledge series, so you can just visually tell, is the full length grip. It's kind of a weird size. It's 7.3½ actually, and it's just a medium heavy fast action rod, but just a little bit longer length for better cast. And just when they're biting at the end of the cast, or maybe after the first or second wind, so pretty far out there. So you want a longer rod to be able to set the hook on those fish, and if they're big ones, obviously bring them in, and just a little bit longer rod helps. But as always guys, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. If you are experienced at hair jig fishing, I hope I gave you a little insight on just something you can try, some different techniques. If you're not experienced, I hope I gave you the confidence to get out there and try and catch those big fish, because they are out there, and this is a fun way to fish and good way to catch them. So thanks again, and I'll catch you next time.